My name is Sarah, and I'm 38 years old. 6 months ago, I sat beside my husband's hospital bed while he was dying of pancreatic cancer, holding his hand, telling him I loved him, promising him that our daughter Lily would grow up knowing what an amazing father she had. I meant every single word. I had spent 11 years building a life with this man. 11 years of marriage, countless holidays, a mortgage, inside jokes, a child we had fought so hard to conceive. I thought I knew him better than I knew myself. Then, on March 14th at 2:47 in the morning, while I had stepped out to get coffee from the vending machine because I hadn't slept in 3 days, my husband Marcus recorded a video confession on his phone. He addressed it to me. He said he needed to tell me the truth before he died because he couldn't meet God with this weight on his soul. The affair had lasted 9 years. 9 years. And the other woman was my identical twin sister, Rebecca, our miracle baby, our Lily, the daughter we had conceived after 4 rounds of IVF, after I had pumped my body full of hormones and endured procedure after procedure, after we had spent over $60,000 trying to have a child together. Wasn't mine at all. She was theirs. What I didn't know, sitting in that fluorescent lit hospital cafeteria, stirring powdered creamer into bitter coffee, was that my entire life was about to collapse. That everything I believed about my family, my marriage, my identity as a mother was a carefully constructed lie, and that the 2 people I trusted most in this world had been laughing at me behind my back for nearly a decade. Before I tell you what happened, I want you to take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if this story resonates with you. I have a feeling it might, because the things I'm about to share go beyond my specific situation. They touch on trust, on family, on the masks people wear, and the lengths they'll go to protect their secrets. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. I want to know who's listening. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. I need you to understand something about me and Rebecca. We weren't just twins. We were the kind of twins that people write stories about, identical in every physical way, down to the small birthmark behind our left ears. Growing up in Cedar Falls, Iowa, we were inseparable. We had our own language when we were toddlers. We dressed alike until we were 12. We finished each other's sentences so often that our teachers thought we were doing it on purpose. But there was always something different about us that went beyond appearance. I was the responsible one. The one who got straight A's, who followed the rules, who helped Mom with dinner and reminded Dad to take his blood pressure medication. Rebecca was the spark. She was the one who snuck out at night, who dated the boys our parents didn't approve of, who could walk into any room and immediately become the center of attention. I used to think we complemented each other. Now, I understand that Rebecca always saw me as competition, and I never even knew we were playing a game. Our mother, Patricia, had a way of comparing us that seemed harmless at the time, but looking back, I can see the damage it caused. She would introduce us to her friends by saying, "This is Sarah, she's my practical one, and this is Rebecca, she's the beauty." As if those were mutually exclusive, as if being reliable somehow meant I wasn't also pretty. We had the same face, for God's sake. When I was 16, I had my first serious boyfriend. His name was Kevin Schultz, and he played guitar in the school jazz band. I thought I was in love with him in that intense, consuming way that only 16-year-olds can be in love. We dated for 4 months. Then I came home early from a debate competition one Saturday to find Rebecca in my bedroom, wearing my favorite sweater, making out with Kevin on my bed. I remember standing in the doorway, my debate trophy still in my hand. I had won first place. I had been so excited to tell someone. Rebecca looked up at me, and I'll never forget what she said. She didn't apologize. She didn't look embarrassed. She just shrugged and said, "You weren't using him." I told myself it didn't matter. Kevin was just a high school boyfriend. Rebecca was my twin, my other half. Blood was thicker than water, and besides, what was the point of holding on to anger? I forgave her within a week. That was my first mistake, the first of many. At 22, I graduated from the University of Iowa with a degree in nursing. I had worked my way through school, waitressing at a diner near campus, taking extra shifts whenever I could. Rebecca had dropped out after her sophomore year to pursue an acting career in Los Angeles. She lasted 8 months before she came back home, broke and bitter, claiming that Hollywood was rigged against people without connections. Our parents helped her get back on her feet. They paid off her credit card debt, which I later learned was close to $18,000. They let her live at home, rent-free, while she figured out her next steps. When I pointed out that I had never received that kind of financial support, my mother pulled me aside and said, "Sarah, you've always been able to take care of yourself. Rebecca needs more help. That's just how it is." I told myself it made sense. I was the strong one. Rebecca was fragile. It wasn't favoritism. It was just recognizing that we had different needs. When I was 25, I met Marcus Chen at a hospital fundraiser. He was a pharmaceutical sales representative, charming and confident, with a smile that made me feel like the only person in the room. He asked for my number, and I gave it to him, even though I had a strict rule about not dating people I met at work events. Our first date was at an Italian restaurant in downtown Chicago, where I had moved after taking a job at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. He ordered for both of us without asking what I wanted, and I remember thinking it was romantic, confident, decisive. Now I recognize it as the first red flag I chose to ignore. Marcus was everything I thought I wanted. Successful, driven, attentive. He sent flowers to my work after our third date. He remembered the name of my childhood dog. He listened when I talked about my patients, asked follow-up questions, made me feel like my work mattered. 6 months into our relationship, I brought him home to Cedar Falls to meet my family. My parents loved him immediately. My father clapped him on the back and said he was glad I had finally found a good one. My mother pulled me into the kitchen and whispered that I better hold on to this one because men like Marcus didn't come around twice. Rebecca was visiting that same weekend. She had just gone through a messy breakup with a married man she had been seeing in Minneapolis, and she was staying in her old bedroom, sleeping until noon and drinking wine in the evenings while complaining about how unfair life was. I remember the exact moment she met Marcus. We were all sitting in the living room before dinner, and Rebecca came downstairs in a tight red dress that was entirely inappropriate for a casual family gathering. She had done her hair and makeup as if she were going to a nightclub. She walked straight up to Marcus, extended her hand, and said, "So you're the one who finally caught my sister. I'm impressed." Marcus held her hand a beat too long. I saw it, but I told myself I was imagining things. At dinner that night, Rebecca sat across from Marcus and asked him question after question about his job, his ambitions, his workout routine. She laughed at everything he said, touched his arm when she agreed with something, leaned forward so he could see down her dress. It was so obvious, so transparent, that I was almost embarrassed for her. Afterward, when Marcus and I were alone in my old bedroom, I mentioned it. I said, "Rebecca was really laying it on thick tonight." Marcus laughed. "Was she? I didn't notice." I told myself he was being polite, that he only had eyes for me, that I was being paranoid and jealous, traits I had always despised in other women. We got married 18 months later in October at a vineyard outside of Chicago. Rebecca was my maid of honor. In the photos from that day, she's standing right beside me, her arm around my waist, her smile so wide and so genuine that you would never guess she was sleeping with my husband behind my back. The affair had already started by then. I just didn't know it. I found out later from the video Marcus recorded in his hospital bed that it began 3 weeks before our wedding. Rebecca had come to Chicago to help me with last-minute preparations. She stayed at our apartment while Marcus and I were at work. Apparently, Marcus came home early one day, and Rebecca answered the door in one of my robes. He said it just happened, as if gravity pulled them together, as if they had no choice in the matter. He said they tried to stop, but the connection was too strong. He said he loved me, he really did, but there was something about Rebecca that he couldn't resist. Listening to him explain it in that raspy, dying voice was like being stabbed slowly with a dull knife. Every word carved a new wound, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you about the years in between. The years when I thought I had a happy marriage, a loving husband, a supportive family. The years when I was the only one who didn't know the truth. Marcus and I settled into married life with the comfortable rhythm that I assumed all good marriages had. He traveled for work 2 or 3 times a month, sometimes more. Pharmaceutical sales meant conferences, client dinners, hospital visits across the Midwest. I trusted him completely. It never occurred to me to check his phone or question his itineraries. Rebecca had moved to Chicago about 6 months after our wedding. She said she wanted to be closer to me, that she missed having her twin nearby, that Cedar Falls was too small for her. She got an apartment in Lincoln Park, about 20 minutes from our place in Wicker Park. She started working as a receptionist at a dental office, though she complained about it constantly. Looking back, I should have noticed how often her schedule seemed to align with Marcus's travel, how she was always free when he was out of town, how she never seemed to have a boyfriend of her own, despite being gorgeous and outgoing and exactly the type of woman men fell over themselves to impress. But I didn't notice. I was too busy working double shifts, too busy trying to be the perfect wife, too busy planning for the baby I so desperately wanted. We started trying to conceive after our second anniversary. I was 28 years old, healthy, with no known fertility issues. I assumed it would happen quickly. It didn't. Month after month, the pregnancy test came back negative. I started tracking my ovulation, taking my temperature every morning, timing our intimacy with clinical precision. Marcus went along with it, though I could tell he found the whole process exhausting. After a year with no success, I made an appointment with a fertility specialist. Dr. Eleanor Reeves at the Midwest Fertility Center became my new best friend and my greatest source of both hope and heartbreak. She ran every test imaginable. She examined Marcus, too. The results were puzzling. Everything looks normal, she told us, sitting in her office with our files spread across her desk. Sometimes conception just takes time, but given your age, I'd recommend we start exploring options. We tried IUI first, intrauterine insemination, 3 rounds, 3 failures. Each negative result felt like a personal failure, like my body was betraying me in the most fundamental way. Then we moved on to IVF, in vitro fertilization. The process was brutal. Hormone injections that made me bloated and emotional. Egg retrieval procedures that left me cramping and sore. The waiting, always the waiting to see if the embryos would take. The first round failed, so did the second. By the third round, I had spent over $40,000 of our savings and countless hours crying in clinic waiting rooms. Rebecca was there for me through all of it, or at least that's what I thought. She would come over after my procedures, bringing ice cream and trashy magazines. She would sit with me while Marcus was traveling, letting me cry on her shoulder about how unfair it was that getting pregnant was so easy for some women and so hard for me. "It'll happen," she would say, rubbing my back. "I know it will. You're going to be such an amazing mom." The irony makes me want to vomit now. On our 4th round of IVF, something miraculous happened. The embryo took. I was pregnant. I remember calling Marcus to tell him. He was at a conference in Minneapolis. He cried on the phone, said he was so happy, said he would be home the next morning to celebrate. When I called Rebecca, she screamed so loud that my ears rang. She said she was coming over immediately with sparkling cider and baby name books. What I didn't know was that Marcus wasn't alone in that Minneapolis hotel room. Rebecca had driven up to meet him. When I called to share the news, she was lying right beside him. They told me this, both of them, in their own ways. Marcus in his deathbed confession, Rebecca later, when everything had fallen apart, when there was no point in lying anymore. They had been together when I called. They had celebrated my pregnancy together. And then they had made a decision that would alter the course of my life. Okay, I need to pause here for a second. Have you ever had a moment in your life where everything you believed was true suddenly revealed itself to be a lie, where the ground beneath your feet just disappeared? I want you to type in the comments if you've experienced anything like this. And if this story's hitting close to home, please hit that like button so more people can find it. I need you to know that you're not alone. Let me continue. My pregnancy was difficult from the start. Severe morning sickness that lasted well into my 2nd trimester. Gestational diabetes that required careful monitoring. High blood pressure that had my doctors watching me closely. I was put on modified bed rest at 32 weeks, which meant I had to take early maternity leave from my nursing job. Rebecca stepped up during this time, or so I thought. She would come over almost every day, bringing groceries and doing light housework. She would sit with me and watch television, rub my swollen feet, talk about the baby and what she would be like. "I hope she has your eyes," Rebecca said once, her hand on my belly. "We have the same eyes," I reminded her. She smiled. "I know. That's why I hope she has them." It didn't occur to me until much later that she wasn't talking about my eyes at all. Lily was born on August 23rd at 6:42 in the morning after 16 hours of labor. She was small but healthy, 6 pounds and 3 ounces, with a full head of dark hair and the most perfect little face I had ever seen. When they placed her on my chest, still wet and screaming, I felt a love so overwhelming that it nearly knocked me unconscious. This was my daughter, my miracle baby, the child I had fought so hard to have. Marcus cried when he held her. My parents drove up from Cedar Falls and crowded into the hospital room with flowers and balloons, and Rebecca stood in the corner, watching with an expression on her face that I couldn't quite read. I know now what that expression was. It was jealousy, it was longing, it was the face of a woman watching someone else raise her child. The first few years of Lily's life were a blur of sleepless nights and first steps and pediatrician appointments. I went back to work part-time when she was 6 months old, and Rebecca offered to babysit. It seemed like the perfect arrangement. Free childcare from someone who loved Lily almost as much as I did. Almost as much. That's what I thought. There were signs. Looking back, so many signs that I refused to see. Rebecca would sometimes call Lily my baby and then quickly correct herself. She would get possessive when other people held her, even me. She would show up unannounced at our house, letting herself in with the spare key we had given her, as if she had every right to be there. Once, when Lily was about 2 years old, I came home from work early to find Rebecca sitting in the nursery, holding Lily in the rocking chair, singing a lullaby. The curtains were drawn and the room was dim, and something about the scene struck me as off. Wrong, like I was intruding on something private. "Oh, you're home early," Rebecca said, not getting up, not handing Lily back to me. "Traffic was light," I said. "I can take her now." Rebecca held Lily a moment longer before finally passing her to me. As she did, she said, "She's so beautiful. She looks just like me." I laughed nervously. "She looks like both of us. We're twins, remember?" Rebecca didn't laugh. She just looked at Lily with those eyes I now recognized as maternal hunger. Another time, about a year later, I overheard Rebecca on the phone while she was watching Lily at our house. I had come home to grab some files I had forgotten, and I heard her voice through the kitchen window. "I know," she was saying. "I know, but what do you want me to do? I can't just tell her. It would destroy everything." I assumed she was talking about some drama with one of her friends. Rebecca always had complicated relationships with people. I didn't ask who she was talking to or what she was talking about. I wish I had. When Lily was 4 years old, Marcus's company went through a restructuring. He lost his sales territory and had to take a significant pay cut. At the same time, the hospital where I worked implemented staffing cuts, and my hours were reduced. We struggled financially for the first time in our marriage. The mortgage was too high. The credit card debt had crept up. The savings we had spent on fertility treatments had never fully recovered. Rebecca offered to help. She said she had gotten a promotion at her new job, an administrative position at a marketing firm, and she had some extra money she could lend us. Over the course of the next year, Rebecca gave us $32,000. She insisted we didn't have to pay it back. She said it was a gift, that she was happy to help, that we were family, and family took care of each other. I was so grateful, so deeply, pathetically grateful. I hugged her and cried and told her I didn't know what we would have done without her. What I didn't know was that Marcus had been giving Rebecca money for years, thousands of dollars, funneled from our accounts to hers, to pay for trips they took together, dinners they shared, hotel rooms where they betrayed me. The money she gave us was just our money coming back, laundered through her generosity. I found the receipts later. Credit card statements hidden in a folder on Marcus's laptop labeled work expenses, plane tickets to places he never mentioned visiting, hotel reservations in cities where he had no clients, restaurant charges for romantic dinners that weren't with me. The total, over 9 years, was $412,000. But I'm getting ahead of myself again. Let me tell you about the day everything changed. It was February 8th. Marcus had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer 3 months earlier, stage 4. The doctors had given him 6 months to a year, but he had declined faster than anyone expected. By February, he was in hospice care at our home, a hospital bed in the living room because he wanted to look out at the backyard where Lily played. Nurses coming and going, morphine drips and labored breathing and the slow, terrible countdown of a life ending. I hadn't slept properly in weeks. I had taken a leave of absence from work to care for him. My mother had come to stay with us, helping with Lily, cooking meals that nobody ate. Rebecca came by every day, sitting beside Marcus's bed, holding his hand, crying. I thought she was crying because she was losing her brother-in-law, because she loved our family, because she was a good sister who was supporting me through the worst time of my life. She was crying because she was losing the love of her life, because their daughter would grow up without him, because their secret was about to die with him, and she didn't know if she could live with it anymore. On the night of March 13th, Marcus took a turn for the worse. His breathing became more labored, his lucid moments fewer. The hospice nurse told me it wouldn't be long now, maybe hours, maybe a day or two. I called Rebecca and asked her to come. I called my parents and told them to drive up from Cedar Falls. I wanted everyone he loved to be with him at the end. That night, I sat beside his bed until nearly 2 a.m. His eyes were closed, but sometimes his fingers would twitch against my hand, and I told myself he knew I was there. Around 2:30, my eyes were burning so badly that I couldn't keep them open anymore. The hospice nurse suggested I take a break, get some coffee, try to rest for even half an hour. Rebecca had fallen asleep on the couch in the den. My mother was in the guest room with Lily. I walked to the kitchen. I made a cup of instant coffee because the machine seemed too complicated in my exhaustion. I sat at the kitchen table and stared at the wall. That's when Marcus recorded the video. The nurse told me later that he had become suddenly alert, almost frantic. He had asked for his phone, which was charging on the bedside table. She helped him hold it because his hands were shaking too badly. He spoke for almost 12 minutes, pausing sometimes to catch his breath, sometimes to cry. He didn't call for me. He didn't ask the nurse to wake me up. He recorded his confession alone in the dark living room with the evidence of his betrayal glowing on the small screen. I didn't find the video until after he died. He passed away at 4:17 that morning, with me holding one hand and Rebecca holding the other. My mother had woken up and was standing in the doorway with Lily, who was too young to understand what was happening. We had a funeral. We buried him at Oakwood Cemetery beside his parents. 83 people came to the service. They said beautiful things about what a good man he was, what a devoted husband and father, how his loss was a tragedy. I smiled through it all. I accepted condolences. I held Lily's hand and told her that Daddy was with the angels now. 3 weeks after the funeral, I finally worked up the courage to go through Marcus's phone. I needed to cancel his accounts, transfer his contacts, handle all the digital remnants of a life that had ended. I was dreading it, but it had to be done. That's when I found the video. It was saved in his photos, dated March 14th at 2:43 in the morning. The thumbnail showed his face, pale and gaunt against the white pillow. I assumed it was a video he had accidentally recorded, or maybe a message for Lily that he had forgotten to tell me about. I pressed play. "Sarah," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I need to tell you something. I should have told you years ago, but I was too scared, too selfish. I told myself it was better if you didn't know, if you could just be happy, but I can't die with this inside me. I can't." He paused, struggling to breathe. The morphine made his words slow, slightly slurred, but clear enough to understand every devastating syllable. "Rebecca and we've been together since before the wedding. 9 years, Sarah. 9 years of lies." I felt the room tilt. My hands started shaking so badly that I almost dropped the phone. "I love her," he continued. "I've always loved her. I loved you too, in my way, but not the same. Not the way a husband should love a wife. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." He was crying now, tears sliding down his hollow cheeks. But that's not the worst part. "Sarah, I need to tell you about Lily." I stopped breathing. The world went completely silent except for his voice, emerging from that small speaker like a curse. "During your third round of IVF, something went wrong. The embryo transfer failed, but the clinic made a mistake. They mixed up samples. Your eggs weren't viable, Sarah. They used Rebecca's instead. She volunteered. She said it was the only way you could have a baby." He paused again, gasping. "Lily is Rebecca's daughter, biologically. She's mine and Rebecca's. We decided not to tell you because we knew it would destroy you. You wanted to be a mother so badly. Rebecca carried the eggs, and I provided the sample, and you carried the pregnancy, but the baby was never genetically yours." I don't remember what happened after that. I know I threw the phone across the room. I know I screamed, a sound that didn't seem to come from my body, but from somewhere deep and primal and broken. I know my mother came running, and I couldn't speak, couldn't explain, could only point at the phone on the floor while I collapsed against the couch and sobbed. My mother watched the video. I heard it playing again, those terrible words filling the room for the second time. When it ended, she didn't say anything for a long moment. Then she said, "I knew." I looked up at her. My mother, Patricia, who had raised me, who had told me she loved me, who had been in my home for the past month helping me bury my husband. "What?" I whispered. "Rebecca told me years ago," my mother said. "She made me promise not to say anything. She said it was the only way to give you the family you wanted." I think I aged 10 years in that moment. I felt my face change, felt my heart harden into something cold and sharp. "Get out," I said. "Sarah, please, you have to understand. We were trying to protect you. Get out of my house." She left. She packed her bag and drove back to Cedar Falls, and she didn't even say goodbye to Lily. It took me 3 days to work up the courage to confront Rebecca. 3 days of replaying the video, of reading the texts I now knew to look for, of understanding for the first time the magnitude of the deception. 3 days of looking at Lily, my daughter, and wondering if anything I felt for her had been real. If the love of my life was even mine to claim. She came when I called. She walked into my house with that same concerned expression she had worn at the funeral, the supportive sister ready to help me grieve. I was sitting at the kitchen table. Lily was at school. The house was empty except for us. "Sarah, you sounded upset on the phone. Are you okay?" I pushed the phone toward her. "Watch this." She picked it up, and I saw her face change as she realized what she was looking at. The color drained from her cheeks. Her hand started to shake. "Sarah, I can explain. Can you explain 9 years? Can you explain sleeping with my husband 3 weeks before our wedding? Can you explain letting me think my daughter was biologically mine when she wasn't?" Rebecca started crying, those beautiful manipulative tears that had always worked on everyone. "I did it for you," she said. "The IVF wasn't working. Your eggs weren't viable. The doctor told Marcus, and he came to me, and we made a decision. We gave you a baby. We gave you the family you always wanted. You gave yourself a family," I said. "You gave yourself a husband who wasn't yours, and a daughter you could visit whenever you wanted, and a sister who was too stupid to see the truth. It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like, Rebecca? What was it like to come to my house and hold my baby and know she was really yours? What was it like to sleep with my husband and then come over for Sunday dinner and pretend we were all one big happy family?" She was crying harder now, her mascara running, her carefully constructed facade crumbling. "I loved him," she said. "I've loved him since the first night we met. You brought him home, and I knew he was supposed to be mine. I tried to stay away. I tried to be a good sister, but he loved me too. He always loved me more." I felt something inside me go quiet. The rage that had been building for 3 days seemed to crystallize into something cold and clear. "I want you to leave," I said. "I want you to leave my house, and I want you to stay away from my daughter. She's my daughter too." "No, she's not. She's mine. I carried her. I gave birth to her. I have raised her for 6 years. You are nothing but an egg donor and a liar. Rebecca stood up, and for a moment I thought she might fight me. But then she grabbed her purse and walked toward the door. She stopped at the threshold and turned back. You always thought you were better than me, she said. Mom's practical one, the responsible one, but you weren't better. You were just blind. She slammed the door behind her. I sat in my empty kitchen for 2 hours, staring at nothing. All right, I want to check in with you again. What would you have done in my position? Would you have confronted your mother? Would you have demanded a DNA test? Would you have questioned everything about your relationship with your daughter? Type yes or no in the comments. I want to know what you would have done. And if you're dying to see what happens next, make sure you're subscribed. The weeks following my confrontation with Rebecca were the hardest of my life. I was grieving my husband, processing his betrayal, and trying to figure out how to move forward as a mother to a child who might not biologically be mine. I ordered a DNA test. I swabbed Lily's cheek while she was sleeping, telling myself it didn't matter what the results said, that she was my daughter regardless of genetics. But I needed to know the truth. The results came back 2 weeks later. They confirmed what Marcus had said in the video. Lily was not my biological child. She shared DNA with me because Rebecca was my identical twin, which made the genetics complicated, but the maternal line was clear. The eggs had come from Rebecca. I sat with those results for a long time. I looked at them, read them over and over, tried to understand what they meant for my identity as a mother, and then I did something that surprised even me. I shredded them because it didn't matter. Lily was my daughter. I had wanted her, fought for her, carried her inside my body for 9 months. I had held her when she was sick and celebrated her first steps and wiped her tears when she fell off her bike. Biology was just a technicality. Love was what made a family, but the betrayal still burned, and I wasn't done seeking answers. My father called me a week after my mother left. His voice was hesitant, ashamed. Sarah, your mother told me what happened. I just wanted to see how you were doing. Did you know? I asked. Did you know about Rebecca and Marcus? A long pause, the kind of pause that told me everything. I suspected, he said finally. I saw them together once, at your place. They were too close. I asked your mother about it, and she told me I was imagining things. I let myself believe her. You let yourself believe her, I repeated. I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm so sorry. I should have said something. I should have protected you. Yes, you should have. I hung up the phone. I didn't speak to either of my parents for 3 months. During that time, I focused on Lily. I took her to a child psychologist to help her process her father's death. I enrolled her in a summer art camp because she had started drawing constantly, beautiful little pictures of flowers and birds, and sometimes a man I knew was Marcus. I rebuilt our routine, just the two of us, creating a new normal that didn't include anyone who had lied to me. I also started digging into the finances. I needed to understand how bad the damage was. Marcus had left everything to me in his will, the house, his life insurance policy, our joint accounts. But when I sat down with our financial records, I discovered that everything was mortgaged to the hilt. The life insurance barely covered the funeral expenses and the outstanding medical bills. And then I found the folder on his laptop, the one labeled work expenses. For 2 days, I went through every receipt, every bank statement, every credit card charge. I created a spreadsheet because I'm a nurse and I believe in documentation. I tracked every dollar Marcus had spent on Rebecca over the course of their affair. Plane tickets, hotel rooms, dinners at expensive restaurants, jewelry that I had never seen, a weekend trip to Napa Valley that coincided with a work conference Marcus claimed to attend alone, a down payment on Rebecca's apartment when she first moved to Chicago. The total came to $412,743. $400,000 of my money, our money, the money I had earned working double shifts and holidays and covering for colleagues when they called in sick. Money that should have gone toward our daughter's education, our retirement, our future. And Rebecca had the audacity to call herself generous when she gave us back $32,000 of it. I called my lawyer. Her name was Patricia Okonkwo. and she had been recommended by a colleague at the hospital. She was in her early 50s, with gray streaks in her natural hair and a no-nonsense attitude that made me feel safe for the first time in months. I told her everything: the affair, the deception about Lily, the financial manipulation. I showed her the spreadsheet. I played her the video. When it was over, she was quiet for a long moment. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm truly sorry you're going through this, but I have to be honest with you about your legal options. Tell me, your husband is deceased. You can't sue a dead person. And while the financial deception is serious, most of that money was technically marital property that your husband had the right to spend. Proving fraud would be difficult and expensive. What about Rebecca? That's more complicated. The money your husband gave her could potentially be classified as marital waste, but pursuing that in court would mean a lengthy civil case with uncertain outcomes, and it would all become public record." I thought about Lily, about what it would mean for her to grow up knowing that her biological mother was actually her aunt, that her parents' marriage had been a lie, that her family had been torn apart by betrayal and greed. "What would you recommend?" I asked. Patricia leaned forward. "In my experience, the best revenge isn't legal action. It's living well. It's protecting yourself and your daughter and not giving these people any more of your time, your energy, or your money. They've taken enough." I nodded slowly. "And what about custody? Could Rebecca ever try to claim parental rights to Lily?" "Based on what you've told me, no. You're listed as the mother on the birth certificate. You carried and gave birth to the child. You've been her primary caregiver for her entire life. The biological connection is complicated by the fact that you and Rebecca are identical twins, which makes the DNA almost indistinguishable. Any judge would see through a custody claim from a woman who participated in this kind of deception." That was the first moment I felt like I could breathe again. I went home that night and held Lily extra tight. She was 6 years old enough to notice that things were different, but young enough to accept my explanations. "Mommy's sad because Daddy's gone," I told her. "But we're going to be okay, just the two of us." "What about Auntie Rebecca?" she asked. "She hasn't come to visit in a long time." I hesitated. How do you explain to a child that her aunt betrayed her mother in the worst way imaginable? How do you protect her innocence while also protecting yourself from people who would hurt you both? "Auntie Rebecca is taking a break from visiting," I said finally. "Sometimes grown-ups need time apart, even when they love each other." "Do you still love Auntie Rebecca?" I thought about it, really thought about it. "I'm learning how to feel about Auntie Rebecca," I said. "It's complicated." Lily seemed to accept that. Children are more resilient than we give them credit for. The summer passed. I returned to work part-time, grateful for the distraction and the income. The hospital had been understanding about my extended leave, and my supervisor made it clear that my job was secure as long as I needed it. I started seeing a therapist, a woman named Dr. Chen, who specialized in trauma and family systems. She helped me understand that what I had experienced wasn't just betrayal, but a form of psychological abuse. The gaslighting, the manipulation, the systematic deception over years. None of it was my fault. "You trusted your husband and your sister," she said during one of our sessions. "That's not a character flaw. That's a normal, healthy part of human relationships. They weaponized your trust against you. That says everything about them and nothing about you." I cried a lot in those early months. I also raged. I went through all the stages of grief, not just for Marcus, but for the life I thought I had, the family I thought I knew, the sister I thought I could trust. But slowly, things started to shift. I reconnected with old friends I had neglected during my marriage. I joined a support group for widows, though I often felt like a fraud because I was grieving something more complicated than just a death. I started running in the mornings before Lily woke up, pounding the pavement until my lungs burned and my mind went quiet. And I started preparing for what I knew would be the inevitable confrontation with my family. It came in September, 6 months after Marcus's death, in the form of an invitation. My parents were celebrating their 40th wedding anniversary. They were hosting a party at the community center in Cedar Falls, and every member of the extended family was invited. Aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, family friends who had known me since I was born. I received the invitation in the mail, addressed to Sarah and Lily. No mention of Marcus, which at least showed they had some sense. I almost threw it away. I had every right to skip the event, to continue the silence I had maintained with my parents and Rebecca for months. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the therapist's words about not letting them control my narrative. Maybe it was the desire to see my extended family, people who had nothing to do with the betrayal. Maybe it was simply that I was tired of hiding. I called Patricia Okonkwo. "I need your advice," I said. "My parents are having an anniversary party. My entire extended family will be there, including Rebecca. I want to go, but I'm worried about what might happen." "What are you hoping to achieve by going?" she asked. I thought about it. I want them to know the truth. Not just my parents and Rebecca, but everyone. I'm tired of being the one who keeps secrets that protect the people who hurt me. Patricia was quiet for a moment. That's a significant decision. Once information like this is public, you can't take it back. It will affect everyone's relationships, including Lily's with her extended family. I know, but isn't that their problem? They created this situation. Why should I be the one who has to manage the fallout? "You shouldn't," Patricia said. "I just want you to be prepared for all the possible outcomes. Some family members will side with you. Some might side with your parents and Rebecca, especially if they've been told a different story. And some will simply want the whole thing to go away." "I'm prepared," I said. "I've been preparing for 6 months. The party was scheduled for September 27th. I booked a hotel room in Cedar Falls for me and Lily, telling myself we could leave at any time if things got too difficult. I packed carefully. I brought copies of the financial spreadsheet. I brought transcripts of Marcus's video confession, the words printed in stark black and white so there could be no denying what he said. I brought screenshots of text messages I had found on Marcus's old phone, messages between him and Rebecca that made their affair undeniable. I dressed in a simple navy dress that made me look professional and put together. I did my makeup with care, covering the dark circles that still lingered under my eyes. I wanted to walk into that party looking like a woman who had survived something terrible and emerged stronger. Lily wore a pink dress with flowers on it. She was excited about seeing her cousins, about the cake and the party games. She had no idea what was about to happen. We arrived at the community center at 4:30, half an hour after the party started. The parking lot was already full. I could hear music coming from inside, the tinkling laughter of family members catching up. I took Lily's hand. "Remember what we talked about, sweetheart. If Mommy asks you to go with Cousin Emily, you go without arguing, okay?" "Okay, Mommy, but why would I have to go?" "Sometimes grown-ups need to have conversations that aren't for kids. It doesn't mean anything bad is happening. It just means I need you to be my brave girl." She nodded solemnly. "I'm always brave." We walked inside. The community center had been decorated with gold and white streamers with photos of my parents' marriage plastered on poster boards around the room. 40 years of family history, 40 years of memories, many of which included me and Rebecca side by side, indistinguishable except for the subtle differences only a twin would notice. My mother saw me first, me. She was standing near the refreshment table, talking to my Aunt Helen. Her face went pale, and she quickly excused herself, walking toward me with that carefully constructed smile that I now recognized as her public mask. "Sarah, you came. I wasn't sure you would." "I wasn't sure either," I said. "Where's Dad?" "He's outside with your uncles, looking at the new truck." "Sarah, please, can we talk privately before you do anything?" "There's nothing to talk about, Mom. Not privately, anyway." My mother's mask slipped. For just a moment, I saw the fear underneath. "Sarah, please, this is our anniversary party. Don't ruin this for us." "Ruin it? For you?" I kept my voice calm, the way Patricia had suggested. I'm not ruining anything. I'm just here to celebrate my parents' 40 years of marriage, unless there's a reason you're worried about me being here." Before she could respond, Rebecca appeared at her side. My twin sister looked beautiful as always. She had lost weight, and her cheekbones were more prominent than I remembered. She was wearing a green dress that matched her eyes, our eyes, and her hair was styled in elegant waves. "Sarah, we need to talk." "No, Rebecca, we don't. Please, just give me 5 minutes." I looked at her, this woman who wore my face, who had stolen my husband, who had let me believe a lie for years. "I'll give you 5 minutes," I said, "but not in private. If you have something to say to me, you can say it in front of everyone." I turned and walked toward the center of the room, where my cousin Emily was watching with undisguised curiosity. Can you take Lily outside to see the playground? I need to handle something with the adults." Emily nodded, sensing the tension. She took Lily's hand and led her toward the back door. By now, the commotion had attracted attention. People were stopping their conversations, turning to look. My aunts and uncles, my grandmother, the family friends who had known me all my life. My father came in from outside, alerted by someone. He looked at me with tired, guilty eyes. "Sarah, honey, maybe we should—" "No, Dad, we shouldn't." I walked to the center of the room, where the poster boards of family photos provided an ironic backdrop. I took a deep breath. "I know you all came here to celebrate my parents' anniversary," I said, my voice carrying across the now silent room. "And I don't want to take away from that. But before we continue this celebration of 40 years of marriage, I think there's something everyone should know about this family." "Sarah, don't do this." My mother's voice was sharp. "My husband Marcus passed away 6 months ago. Most of you came to the funeral. You said lovely things about what a good man he was, what a devoted husband and father. What you didn't know, what I didn't know until after he died, was that Marcus had been having an affair for 9 years, and the other woman was my twin sister, Rebecca." Gasps rippled through the room. I saw my Aunt Helen's hand fly to her mouth. My grandmother sank into a chair as if her legs had given out. Rebecca stepped forward. "Sarah, this isn't the place. This is exactly the place, because everyone in this room has been lied to, and I'm done being the only one who knows the truth." I reached into my purse and pulled out the printed transcripts. Before Marcus died, he recorded a video confession. He admitted to the affair, which started 3 weeks before our wedding. He admitted that he loved Rebecca, that he had always loved her more than me, and he admitted something else, something even worse. I paused, letting the tension build. "Our daughter Lily, the child I thought was our miracle baby after years of fertility struggles, is not biologically mine. During our IVF treatment, there was a mix-up at the clinic. My eggs weren't viable, and Rebecca volunteered hers without telling me. Lily is Marcus and Rebecca's biological child, and both of them knew. Both of them decided to keep it from me for 6 years." The silence in the room was absolute. Then my grandmother spoke. "Patricia, is this true?" My mother's face crumpled. She didn't even try to deny it. "We were trying to protect her," she whispered. "Sarah wanted a baby so badly. We thought it was better if she didn't know." "You thought it was better." I let the words hang in the air. "You thought it was better for me to live a lie, to raise a child without knowing the truth about her genetics, to trust a husband who was sleeping with my sister, to believe I had a family that loved me, when really you were all just protecting Rebecca." My father stepped forward. "Sarah, honey, please, we never meant to hurt you." "Then what did you mean, Dad? What did you mean when you saw Marcus and Rebecca together and said nothing? What did you mean when Mom called to tell you the truth and you decided I didn't deserve to know? What did you mean when you came to my house after Marcus died and sat at my table and ate my food and let me believe my mother was there to support me?" He didn't have an answer. Rebecca was crying now. "Sarah, I'm sorry. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I loved him. I didn't plan for it to happen. I didn't set out to hurt you. You had 9 years to tell me the truth. 9 years, Rebecca. You watched me struggle with fertility. You watched me pump my body full of hormones. You watched me cry after every failed treatment, and the whole time you knew that you were going to give Marcus the baby I couldn't have. It wasn't like that. Then tell me what it was like. Tell everyone here what it was like to sleep with your sister's husband for almost a decade. Tell them what it was like to hold my daughter, your daughter, and pretend you were just the loving aunt. Tell them what it was like to take $400,000 of my money to fund your affair. This last detail caused another round of gasps. My Uncle Robert, who had always been the family's voice of reason, stepped forward. $400,000? Sarah, are you certain? I handed him the spreadsheet. I have receipts for every dollar. Credit card statements, hotel bookings, plane tickets. Marcus was funneling money to Rebecca for years. Money that came from our joint accounts. Money I earned working double shifts at the hospital. Uncle Robert looked at the spreadsheet, then looked at Rebecca. Is this true? Rebecca was crying too hard to answer. My mother tried to speak on her behalf. The money, it was just, Marcus wanted to help Rebecca. She was struggling. She was struggling with what, Mom? Paying for her trips to meet my husband? Buying jewelry with my money? Putting a down payment on her apartment so they would have somewhere to meet? You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I understand that my entire family chose Rebecca over me, that you all decided I was too weak, too pathetic, too desperate for a family to handle the truth, that you thought you could manage my life without my consent. Well, you can't, not anymore. I turned to address the room at large. I'm not here to destroy this party. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because I am done being the family secret keeper. I am done protecting people who never protected me. And I am done pretending that everything is fine when my life has been built on lies. My grandmother stood up slowly, using her cane for support. She was 83 years old, the matriarch of our family, and her word carried weight. Patricia, she said to my mother, is what Sarah is saying true? Did you know about this? My mother's silence was answer enough. My grandmother shook her head slowly. I am ashamed of you, both of you. She looked at Rebecca. And you, girl, I don't have words for what you've done. She turned to me and her eyes softened. Sarah, honey, I'm sorry. I'm sorry this happened to you, and I'm sorry no one told me. If I had known, you couldn't have stopped it, Grandma, but thank you. Thank you for believing me. She held out her arms, and I went to her. She hugged me tight, this tiny woman who had always been my favorite, and I felt tears streaming down my face. You're stronger than all of them, she whispered. Don't you forget it. The party effectively ended after that. Most of the extended family left quietly, offering me sympathetic looks or murmured apologies. My aunts and uncles clustered around my grandmother, clearly taking her lead in supporting me. Rebecca left first, slinking out the back door while everyone was distracted. I saw her go and felt nothing but relief. My parents stayed, perhaps hoping for some kind of reconciliation. My father approached me while my mother sat alone at a table, her face in her hands. Sarah, I know we can't fix this overnight, but please don't shut us out completely. We're still your parents. We still love you. Do you? Because it doesn't feel like love, Dad. It feels like you loved your convenience more than you loved me. It feels like you were so afraid of conflict that you let me live a lie rather than tell me the truth. I was afraid of losing you both, you and Rebecca. I thought if I said something, our whole family would fall apart. Our whole family did fall apart, Dad. The only difference is now it's happening on my terms, not yours. He nodded slowly, tears in his eyes. I understand. I hope someday you can forgive us, but I understand if you can't. I didn't have an answer for him. Forgiveness felt very far away. I collected Lily from the playground, thanked Emily for watching her, and drove back to our hotel. Lily fell asleep in the car, exhausted from playing, oblivious to the earthquake that had just reshaped our family. That night, after Lily was asleep in the hotel bed beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. I had done what I came to do. I had told the truth. I had stopped protecting the people who had hurt me, so why didn't I feel better? The answer, I realized, was that revenge wasn't really what I wanted. What I wanted was impossible. I wanted my old life back, the one I thought I had before I learned the truth. I wanted a husband who loved me, and only me. I wanted a sister who was my ally, not my enemy. I wanted parents who put my well-being first. That life had never existed. It was a fantasy, a beautiful lie that had crumbled the moment Marcus pressed record on his phone. But there was another life waiting for me, a smaller life, maybe, but an honest one. A life with Lily, my daughter, regardless of biology. A life with the family members who had proven their loyalty today. A life where I chose who deserved my trust. That was the life I was going to build. The months following the anniversary party were a time of quiet reconstruction. My relationship with my parents remained strained. They called occasionally, leaving voicemails that I sometimes returned. My mother sent cards for Lily's birthday and Christmas, always with notes about how much they missed us, how much they hoped I would come home. I didn't go home, not to Cedar Falls, not to the community that had watched my humiliation, not to the house where I'd grown up believing I was loved unconditionally. But I did allow supervised visits with Lily. Once a month, my parents would drive up to Chicago, and we would meet at a park or a restaurant. They were on their best behavior during these visits, doting on Lily, careful not to say anything that might upset me. I watched them like a hawk, ready to end the visit at the first sign of manipulation. Rebecca tried to contact me several times in the months after the party. Text messages, emails, even a handwritten letter delivered to my workplace. "I know you hate me," she wrote. "I know I deserve it, but please, Sarah, let me explain. Let me try to make this right. I can't lose you completely. You're my twin, my other half. We came into this world together." I didn't respond. There was nothing she could say that would explain 9 years of betrayal. There was no apology that could undo the damage. But then, about 4 months after the party, something changed. I was at work doing a routine blood pressure check on an elderly patient when my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Rebecca. I'm using a different phone because you blocked my number. Please don't hang up. I'm in the hospital. I found a lump and they did a biopsy and it's cancer. Breast cancer, stage 2. I know I don't deserve your sympathy. I just wanted you to know." I stared at my phone for a long time. Cancer. My twin sister had cancer. The same body, the same genetics, the same cells that made up my own flesh. I didn't know what to feel. Part of me, the angry part, thought this was karma. That Rebecca was finally getting what she deserved for all the pain she had caused. But another part of me, the part that remembered sharing a womb, sharing a bedroom, sharing every milestone of childhood, felt a familiar tug of concern. I didn't respond to the text, not right away. But that night, after Lily was asleep, I called Dr. Chen. "My sister has cancer," I said. "I don't know how to feel about it." "You don't have to feel any particular way, doctor," Chen said. "You're allowed to have complicated feelings. You can be angry at what she did and still worried about her health. You can refuse to have a relationship with her and still grieve the possibility of losing her. These things aren't contradictory. What would you do in my position? I can't tell you that. Only you can decide what role, if any, you want to play in her treatment and recovery. But I would encourage you to make the decision that feels right for you, not the decision you think you should make." I thought about it for days. I researched her type of cancer, her likely treatment options, her prognosis. Stage 2 breast cancer was serious but often treatable. She would probably need surgery, possibly chemotherapy or radiation. Finally, I sent a response, just one line. "I hope your treatment goes well. I'm not ready to talk yet." It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was acknowledgement, and for now, that was all I could offer. The year turned over into a new one. Lily started first grade. I got a promotion at work, moving into a supervisory role that came with a raise and better hours. I started dating again, tentatively, going on coffee dates with men I met through a dating app, though none of them turned into anything serious. Slowly, the sharp edges of my grief began to smooth. I still thought about Marcus every day, but the thoughts were less painful. I could remember the good times without being overwhelmed by the betrayal. I could look at our wedding photos and see them for what they were, a moment in time, complicated and imperfect, but real. Lily asked about her father sometimes. I told her that he loved her very much, that he was proud of her, that he would always be watching over her. I didn't tell her the rest. She was too young to understand, and some truths could wait. On the 1-year anniversary of Marcus's death, I took Lily to his grave. We laid flowers, and Lily sang a song she had learned in school. I stood there for a long time, looking at his headstone, feeling the full weight of everything I had lost and everything I had gained. "I forgive you," I whispered so quietly that Lily couldn't hear. "I don't excuse what you did, but I forgive you because carrying this anger is too heavy. I choose to let it go." It wasn't an instant transformation. I didn't suddenly feel light and free, but something shifted in my chest, a knot loosening just slightly. I walked away from the grave holding my daughter's hand, ready to build the rest of our lives. I want to tell you what happened with Rebecca. About 8 months after her diagnosis, she reached out again, not to apologize this time, to share news. Her cancer was in remission. The surgery and chemo had worked. She was going to be okay. "I know you probably don't care," she wrote, "but I thought you should know, in case you were wondering." I was wondering. Despite everything I had been wondering, I still didn't respond, but something in my heart felt just a little bit lighter. Then, about a year after the anniversary party, I received a message from my cousin Emily. She had stayed in touch after everything happened, checking in on me and Lily, offering support without any strings attached. "Have you heard about Rebecca?" she wrote. "Heard what?" "She's moving out of Chicago. She got a job in Seattle and she's leaving next month. I thought you should know." Seattle was 3,000 miles away, a completely different time zone, far enough that there was no chance of running into her at the grocery store or seeing her at family events. I didn't know how to feel about it. Part of me was relieved. Part of me felt something I couldn't quite name. Not sadness exactly, but maybe loss. The loss of the possibility that we might someday repair what was broken. I waited until the night before she was supposed to leave. Then I sent her a message. "I heard you're moving. I hope Seattle is good to you. Maybe someday, when I'm ready, we can talk. But not yet. I need more time." She responded immediately. "Thank you. That's more than I deserve. Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready." I don't know if I'll ever be ready, but I've learned that healing isn't linear, and the future isn't something you can predict. All you can do is take it one day at a time. So that's what I'm doing, one day at a time. Last month, Lily and I moved into a new house. It's a small bungalow in Evanston with a backyard that gets good afternoon light and a breakfast nook that overlooks a garden. I bought it with my own money, saved over years of hard work, plus a small inheritance from my grandmother who passed away peacefully last spring. Grandma left me more than money. She left me a letter written in her shaky handwriting that I read on the day of her funeral. "Sarah," she wrote, "you are the strongest person I know. Not because you don't feel pain, but because you feel it and you keep going anyway. I'm proud of you, my girl. Don't let anyone ever make you feel small. You're a giant." I framed that letter. It hangs in my new kitchen, where I can see it every morning when I make my coffee. Lily loves the new house. She has her own room, painted lavender because that's her favorite color this month. She has friends at school and play dates on weekends, and a life that's full of all the normal things a 7-year-old should have. She doesn't know about the circumstances of her birth. Someday, when she's older, I'll tell her. I'll explain about the IVF, about the mix-up, about Rebecca. I'll let her decide what kind of relationship, if any, she wants to have with her biological mother. But that's a conversation for another day. Right now, she's just a kid, and I'm just her mom, and that's enough. As for me, I'm doing okay. Better than okay, most days. I've made new friends through work and through Lily's school. I've reconnected with old friends who distanced themselves during my marriage, not because they didn't love me, but because Marcus had slowly isolated me without my noticing. I've learned to set boundaries with my parents, who I see occasionally, but who no longer have the power to make me feel small, with my colleagues, who respect my time and my expertise, with myself, most importantly. I've learned to be kind to myself, to forgive myself for not seeing the truth sooner, to acknowledge that I was a victim without becoming a permanent victim. I'm finally free, not free from consequences because those will follow me always, not free from pain because that's part of being human, but free from the lies that shaped my life for so many years, free from the people who used my love against me, free from the weight of protecting everyone else at my own expense. That's the lesson I want to leave you with. If you've been in a situation like mine, if you've been lied to by people you trusted, if you've given and given and given only to discover that your generosity was being exploited, I want you to know something. You're not crazy. You're not paranoid. You're not too sensitive. You deserve to know the truth. You deserve to be surrounded by people who love you honestly. You deserve to put yourself first, even when, especially when, it makes other people uncomfortable. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. Choosing yourself isn't ungrateful. Walking away from toxic people, even toxic family, isn't cold. It's survival. And sometimes survival is the most radical act of self-love there is. I spent 37 years of my life trying to be good enough for people who would never appreciate me. I lost money, time, energy, and nearly my sanity trying to earn love that should have been given freely. I'm done with that now. I'm building a life based on honesty, surrounded by people who love me for exactly who I am. And if that means my family is smaller than it used to be, well, quality matters more than quantity. My daughter is healthy and happy. My career is thriving. My home is peaceful. My heart is healing. That's enough. That's more than enough. Thank you so much for staying with me through this story. I know it was long, and I know parts of it were hard to hear, but if it resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe. I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to walk away from family who betrayed you? How did you find the strength to put yourself first? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if you're in a situation right now where you're not sure if what you're experiencing is betrayal, or if you're just being too sensitive, trust yourself. You know your own life better than anyone else. You know when something is wrong. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Until next time, take care of yourselves. You deserve it.